Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Eckman.
Time, the gentleman from New York.
We thank the Speaker. Madam Speaker, I yield myself the remaining time.
Gentleman is recognized for 7¼ minutes.
Madam Speaker, a very thoughtful general once observed that a loss of 1,000 lives is a statistic, but the loss of one life was a tragedy. There were thousands of tragedies that occurred 7 years ago today. I want to talk about one of them. It was a very long week here in Washington, that week of 9/11. It took 3 or 4 times the usual time for me to get back to New York. It was late at night. I was able to get a cab in New York to take me down to the World Trade Center, to the pier where they had set up all of the emergency work. I went there at that hour to find my wife, who was a mental health worker, one of those people who were asked to come down and volunteer. And as I waited for her to do the things that she and so many other people were doing, I walked around. There was a long, huge wall with pictures on 8.5 by 11, on napkins, on flyers that were drawn up, people who had pictures of their loved ones, their husbands, their wives, their children, if anybody saw them. There were firemen walking around trying to console women who did not know yet if they were widows. There were little dolls alongside the wall on the floor, stretching for 2 blocks along this pier. They all had notes on them. They were from children who suffered the loss of parents in the Mora building disaster. And these notes all said things like, "When I was in trouble and frightened, someone gave me this doll to make me feel better. I send it to you and hope that you feel better." A fire chief came over to me and asked me if I'd go over and just stand by this gentleman who was all alone at the wall. It was probably midnight. And this fellow, in unique garb, he was a Hasidic Jew, dressed in the traditional big brim black hat, looking very much like the Amish do, with a long black coat. And he stood in front of one flyer without blinking or... The only thing he did was move back and forth, staring at this picture. I just stood next to him. And after a minute, he spoke to me without even looking my way, just staring at the picture on this flyer that looked like a younger version of himself. And he said, "That was my brother." He, I was told, was there every night doing this. "He was my brother. He called me to say goodbye. I told him," he said, "that he had to get out of that building. He had to get out right away. And he said to me, I'm sitting holding hands with the young man who works in the cubicle next to mine, a young Puerto Rican kid who lives in a wheelchair, and there's no way for him to get out of this building. And I told him he would not die alone. And I'm just calling to say goodbye." Nothing anyone could say, nothing I could say. I just stood there. There are thousands of stories. There are thousands of lives. There were tens of thousands of people who were immediately impacted by relatives who died that day. who were heroes as well, some of whom knowingly, some of whom unknowingly went to their deaths, in addition to all of those who rushed into the building to save those that they could. As we remember the first responders, as we remember the people who dug in that pile for so many days and weeks and months, risking their own lives, putting their health at risk and danger, as we know, an issue that still has to be addressed. We remember also those who caused all of that anguish and pain, all of those thousands of tragedies, who changed history in that one incident. And rededicate ourselves to not being only strong but smart as we confront those threats, and honor the memory of all those who were lost and all those who tried to help on that day. Madam Speaker, I have no further requests for time. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 1420?